Welcome to another episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio from Tejas Financial Group. Tejas Financial is a company that specializes in helping retirees and pre-retirees build purposeful retirement plans. Custom plans that not only help clients steward their treasure, but their time and talent as well. They believe that if you're taken care of financially, you go even further to make the family, community, and kingdom impact you truly desire to make, which is the ultimate purpose of wealth. If you'd like to set up a no-cost, no-obligation meeting with one of their financial advisors, give them a call at 222-4236. You can request a meeting at tejasfinancial.com or simply stop by their office on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer.
All right, thanks for joining us on another episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. Once again, I'm joined by a co-host. I've got Matt Hoekstra, a financial advisor on our team, with us in the studio again. Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, good to be here again.
Yeah, we're going to continue last week's conversation for those that were listening. If you weren't listening, Matt went into some detail about a client, and it's not a hypothetical, and we didn't give names, of course, but a client of his and his spouse that are really kind of on very different sides of the saver versus spender spectrum. And one of the things that does come up in our office the most, I would say, and it's probably because we're dealing with people with some degree of wealth, is that they tend to be over saving. It tends to look more like, I would guess, in our office, we see more of the problem of like they have almost too much. And it's almost a challenge for them to wrap their heads around how much they have. It's not uncommon for me to meet with somebody that actually is making more income in retirement because they've been diligent about their plan over the years than they had while they were raising children. And they're kind of hung up with what I call the money disorder, which is they don't fully understand just how much they have. They feel very blessed. They understand they're doing well, but yet they still can't get past that. So I'm going to ask you, Matt, because I've been thinking about it since last week's show, is what do you do? What are some things that you've been able to say to clients that have helped them? How do we get them over that feeling of that I'm going to run out of money when we know as a planner that it'd be really hard for them even to spend what they have now?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I've done with clients here in the most recent years is just helping them understand how they got to this point. So understanding their past experiences and how they see money and how they experience money versus how they did when they were growing up. And that, if we can tie it to something, it just makes it easy. If we can identify how they got there, then we can start to reverse engineer our way out of that and say, okay, this is where you were then. This is where you are now, okay? And so one for instance is I had clients fill out a full kind of financial picture where they listed all of their assets, all of their expenses, and then all of their income. And, what we did was I showed them, okay, if you spend what you're spending now for the rest of your life, you're going to keep saving money until the day that you die. And I was like, is that your goal? Is your goal? Because I've heard from clients, it's nice just to watch those accounts go up, especially when they grew up poor, right? So, and not only when they grew up poor, but especially when that happened. And so what we can do is show, okay, based on the last 100 years of stock market returns, inflation, income, all of that, what could they spend? So here's what they are spending. So what could they spend and still have a 95% confidence level that things are going to be okay? And it's a lot of times it's dramatically different. And it takes a while to go through that and to work through that. It's not just flashing up a number and saying, okay, here's magically how it's going to work, but really diving into, many, many years to say things don't have to go perfectly in order for you not to run out of money. There's some bad things that can happen. There's some bad things that likely will happen over the course of your lifetime. We'll see market declines, could be a death in the family, could be, a reduction of income. But this is what it would take for you to run into trouble. And it's a way to slowly just get them closer to that healthy money mindset to say we still have to be prudent. We still have to save. But at the end of the day, when you're 80 years old, we're not saving for someday. That someday's right now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so a lot of times what we'll do is just work on getting clients to say, what if we just worked on just spending your income? We let your assets grow, let your assets grow, and we just spend your income.
Yeah. I'm shocked, Matt, how little, and I don't want anybody that's in their 80s to hear this and be offended, but I think I'm always surprised when I meet somebody in their 80s at how little they like to spend money on themselves, which is a wonderful thing. Most of them end up being very charitable. They end up giving to kids, charities, whatever. And we do a lot of wealth transfer planning, and it's one of the most fun things we get to do. But it also is kind of sad when we get to our 80s and then we have this maybe a little bit of regret, right? People don't regret things that they did. They tend to regret what they did not do. So they look back and they're in their 80s and they're like, wow, I have more income now than I know what to do with. I can't even spend it, and I don't enjoy spending it. Something that I always talk about is when you look at a retirement brochure, it's usually somebody in the retirement age that is on a beach somewhere. And then I ask clients, I said, do you even want to do that? You probably wanted to do that when you were our age, in your 40s. But now it's like, do I really want to be sitting on a beach somewhere? Most of them say, no, I'm in my 80s. Like I'm worried about, a lot of different health factors, other things, right? So one of the things that I love to do, certainly with somebody in their 50s, 60s, is get them on this mindset journey early, right? So they don't end up with a pile of money, because you've seen it, I've seen it, where people end up with that regret of what they didn't do, and they end up, you show them that plan that you were talking about, and let's say they're worth $10 million, and they've got some kids, and they want to take care of the children someday, but they see that money growing and growing and growing, and all of a sudden they look, in that plan you'll see, here is what your children will get if you continue on this. And I've often asked the question, would you rather spend and give some of that money, steward that money? Would you steward it better than your children? You earned it, right? So the second element of that is teaching the kids how to steward it someday, and we'll probably get into that on future shows. But what would you say to somebody today? Maybe they've got a parent or somebody they know is kind of on that mindset. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I would say they need a plan. They need somebody that understands money and, again, can explain that to them to go through it. And I think, one of the saddest things that I've ever seen as it pertains to this wasn't even involving a client. I was a friend of the family, and just a real quick synopsis, but the husband and wife owned a business, and they lived on cold oatmeal for their meals, and they scrimped and they saved and they did everything right, and they sold their business, and they sold it for millions, right? And they had saved millions. And shortly after they sold the business, the wife passed away from cancer. And the husband flipped a switch, and he hired somebody to drive him 3 meals every day to Granite City Brewery. Wow. And then he took my dad out to lunch one time, and he broke down in tears.
Wow.
And he said, I could have done this with my wife. Oh. I could have had these, and again, it's more than just having lunch, but he said we could have done this kind of stuff, and she would have absolutely had a ball. But we didn't, and we saved, and we did all the right things, and we gave up a lot of opportunities along the way.
Yeah, if you're listening to this today and that you can resonate with that, or you know somebody, maybe a parent or somebody that's struggling with that mindset, give our office a call. Matt, we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Do you need ways to help steward your time, your talent, and your treasure? If so, Tejas Financial Group can help. Now is the time to set up a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. You can do this one of three ways. Number one, give them a call right now at 222-4236. You can request a meeting online at tejasfinancial.com, or you can just stop by their office located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer. I'm Jared Sebesta. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. We'll see you next time.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.